Okay, so I'm going to explain what I'm going to call relativistic morality. Now, the reason I'm going to use that term instead of just talk about moral relativism, well, let me explain that with a little digression. Sometimes there are movements which choose a name that can be kind of confusing. So, for example, utilitarianism. Now, utilitarianism has it has a meaning, a natural language. That meaning would be a system where you try to base your actions on what is most useful. And to me, that implies that then you have to define what the use is, what is useful, a criteria of that, and then you judge by those criteria if the system that you have is the one you want. It's a way you can adjust your system. But utilitarianism is also the name of a school of philosophy that advocated a social policy that maximizes happiness or satisfaction, which to me is just an assumption of a certain kind of utility. That other people might have other definitions of utility, and so that bothers me because it leads to confusion when the term comes into natural language, and the name is related to this well-known concept of utility, and yet it means something much more specific as a particular definition of utility. So in moral relativism, the fact is there have been moral nihilists that use that as a name of their system that do advocate that we, that there is no moral systems, that no moral systems really count because they can't, argue for their superiority to others. But to me, this doesn't make sense to me as a relativist because just because there's not one single solution to something doesn't mean there isn't a solution. The fact that there are multiple solutions to something does not mean that there are no solutions. Okay, so if my problem is I want to graph some function that I've discovered, Cartesian coordinate system could be one solution, allowing me to graph it, or a logarithmic system, a logarithmic coordinate system, right? Another issue would be the relativity of velocity. Just because velocity is relative doesn't mean that all velocities are equal, and it doesn't mean that I could just choose what the velocity of an incoming projectile is. It's relative to me. It doesn't mean I get to just choose, and the velocity is whatever I say. Okay, so applying this back to relativistic morality, there's the user Laffix, hi Laffix, loves to talk about how relativistic morality, and he uses the term moral relativism, is incoherent because he said recently, for example, that if moral systems are relative, then I don't have any right to impose my morality on someone else. But the thing is, I don't believe I do have the right to impose my morality on someone else. If I believe in instituting a police force to arrest, or somehow arresting myself, thieves, or stopping them, in other words, from thieving, from stealing from me or other people, I am not doing that because I feel I have a right to impose that morality on them. My moral system is the solution to the problem of getting some rational guidance on how I ought to treat other human beings. And I believe it is a part of my moral system that people can act in self-defense. So I don't believe I have a right to impose my morality on them. What I believe I have sometimes is a necessity to act in some way and to decide on an action. And my moral system is guiding me on how I should act, and it's answering questions for me so that I don't just go arresting people that I don't like or oppressing groups of people that I disagree with. I'm able, with the moral system, describe that necessity, describe the situations in which I will act in a way that is, restricting another person's freedom, since in general I would like not to do that. Okay, so you don't have a right to impose your moral system. That is not why that is not how your actions are justified. Apprehending and incarcerating a murderer is not something that's justified, according to me, by a right to impose my moral system. It's something that it's a method of justifying my own actions in taking that course of action with them, right? So it doesn't mean that everything's equal, and everything being equal doesn't mean that I can't act, because that's simply not the question. The question is, what do I do when someone steals from me? My moral system describes for me answers, and acceptable answers, and patterns of behavior relevant to that question. So nowhere in that do I need the right to impose my moral system on them. I'm not imposing my moral system on somebody if I have some police force that I'm paying taxes to arrest somebody that has stolen. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm acting in self-defense, and the morality in that case is a system by which I can make rational measurements about such actions, so that I can take them with some caution and be conservative with actions that are potentially dangerous, actions that raise moral questions. So, okay, now that's totally clear. Well, that will never come up again. Great.